Mom always said, never listen to grown-up conversations. Maya presses herself flat against the wall, heart hammering. 7 years old, stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. She peers around the corner. But the wicked wife of Mom's boss? She was talking to a man I didn't recognize. Once we switch these files, Lydia says, her voice ice. Lorenzo loses everything. The man next to her, David, swallows. And if someone finds out? No one will, Lydia replies, a smile sharper than a knife. Maya freezes and her breath catches. But what if you hear something really, really bad? Maya's sneaker shifts and makes a sound. Lydia's head snaps toward the door. Did you hear that? Maya's small body stiffens. Then instinct kicks in. She bolts until she crashes into someone. Clara, her mother, exhausted, raw, gripping her shoulders. Maya, what did I tell you about wandering off? Maya glances back. At the far end of the hallway, Lydia steps out, scanning the corridor like a predator, and each word Lydia says was sharp as broken glass. Find out who is eavesdropping. I need names. Pronto. Minutes later, in a hospital, Maya lies in a bed far too large for her small frame, an oxygen mask covering her face. Her hand, pale and fragile, reaches toward nothing. Blood spots the white pillow beneath her head. Clara's scream tears through the air. Somebody help her. Medical alarms shriek, and nurses rush past, trying to stabilize young Maya. I know you must be wondering what happened within those minutes. I'd take you back to how it all began. But before I do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. You won't miss a single twist. 3 hours earlier, Clara moved through the morning rush with Maya's hand locked in hers. Quick steps, shoulders tight, everything about her screaming exhaustion. 3 jobs, endless shifts. Medical bills were stacking higher than she could climb. Her phone buzzed. 3 missed shifts this week. This was her last warning. Mom? Maya's voice was quiet. Are you okay? Clara forced brightness she didn't feel. Always, baby. Always. The lie tasted familiar. By evening, Clara stood before the Grand Mariposa Hotel. 30 floors of glass and gold owned by her main boss, billionaire Lorenzo Harrington. She entered through the service entrance, the way invisible people always do. Maya trailed behind with her backpack of coloring books, settling into the staff break room while Clara changed into her uniform. Stay here, Clara said, kneeling to Maya's eye level. Don't wander. Maya nodded, but the promise lasted until Maya bumped into Clara, and in less than 10 minutes, Clara heard a familiar voice that turned her blood to ice. Clara Reyes, you're fired. Clara spun. Lydia Harrington stood in the corridor, her perfect face twisted with fury, and between them, looking small and terrified, was Maya. Mrs. Harrington? Clara started. Don't. Lydia's voice could have cut glass. Do you think I'm stupid, sending your daughter to spy on me? Clara's mind raced. I don't understand. Maya was in the break room. She was outside my room. Lydia stepped closer, her heels clicking like a countdown. Listening, just like you trained her to do. That's not true. I would never. Security. 2 uniformed guards appeared. Clara looked at Maya, saw the fear in her daughter's eyes, and felt panic rising. She opened her mouth to beg, to explain. Please, Clara said, hating how her voice shook. I need this job. My daughter is sick. Should have thought of that before you asked her to eavesdrop on private conversations. Lydia turned to the guards. Escort them out, and make sure every hotel in the city knows why she was terminated. Clara took Maya's hand as they were bundled out of the hotel like thieves. Rent was due in 6 days. Maya's medication cost $800. The medical bills were already 3 months behind. And now she has no job. Outside, the night air hit like a slap. Maya's voice was tiny against the traffic. Mom, I'm sorry. Clara knelt. Why were you up there, baby? Maya's eyes filled with tears. I got bored. I heard them talking about files and hurting your boss. They said they'd switch papers and he'd lose everything. Her voice broke. Then the floor made a sound and the lady saw me. Shh. Clara pulled Maya close, her mind racing. They walked to the bus stop in silence. Maya leaned against Clara's side, her small body radiating heat that had nothing to do with the warm night. Clara pressed her hand to Maya's forehead. Burning. Baby, do you feel okay? Maya nodded. but the movement was slow, weak, just tired. Home was a one-bedroom apartment where the elevator only worked half the time. Clara unlocked 3 locks. This neighborhood required it. Inside, secondhand furniture arranged carefully, Maya's drawings taped to walls, everything organized to hide how little they actually had. Maya collapsed onto the worn couch. Clara disappeared into the tiny bathroom to splash cold water on her face, trying to steady her shaking hands. Through the thin walls, she could hear Maya coughing. In the living room, Maya pulled herself upright. Her small hands trembled as she dug through her backpack, finding a pencil and the cleanest piece of paper she had. The back of a coloring page. Her chest hurt, her head felt fuzzy, but she knew what she had to do. She started writing in careful, shaky letters. Dear Mr. Harrington, my name is Maya. I heard bad people talking about you today. Once she was done, she addressed it to Mr. Harrington and drew a star in the corner because that's what you did with important letters. The mailbox was just outside their apartment building. Maya knew because she'd mailed her letter to Santa from there last year. Maya stood on tiptoes and dropped the letter inside. It disappeared with a soft thump. There, she whispered to herself. Now Mom won't be in. Trouble. She turned back toward the house. The world tilted slightly. Her chest tightened. But she made it back upstairs, slipping through the door just as Clara emerged from the bathroom. Clara didn't notice Maya's flushed cheeks, or the way she was breathing too fast. She was too busy heating leftovers until Maya's breathing seemed labored. Her skin had taken on a grayish tint that made Clara's stomach clench. Come eat, baby. Maya shook her head. Not hungry. Clara sat beside her. What's wrong? Maya's eyes were glassy, unfocused. She opened her mouth to answer. Instead, she coughed. Blood splattered across her small palm. Clara lunged forward, grabbing Maya as her daughter's body went limp. Maya, look at me. Maya's eyes rolled back. Her breathing turned shallow, rapid. Clara's hands shook as she dialed 911, explaining through tears, 7 years old, cancer patient, coughing blood, barely conscious. The operator stayed calm, asked for the address, and promised help was coming. Clara pressed Maya against her chest, feeling her daughter's heart fluttering like a trapped bird. Stay with me, baby. Stay with me. Maya's lips moved. Clara leaned closer. Mom, the word was barely a whisper. Don't let them hurt people. Then her eyes closed. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes that felt like 7 years. Paramedics moved with efficient urgency, vitals, medical history, insurance information. Clara didn't have answers for. She climbed into the ambulance, Maya's small hand limp in hers. Through the rear windows, their apartment building disappeared into the night. In her pocket, her phone buzzed. A notification from her bank. Account balance, $87. The ambulance siren screamed through the darkness. Clara held her daughter's hand and wondered which would kill them first, the cancer or the cost of surviving it. At the hospital, fluorescent lights turned everything the color of fear. Through glass windows, she watched doctors swarm around Maya's small body, and after a while, a woman in scrubs approached. Her expression was practiced sympathy, the look of someone who delivered bad news for a living. Ma'am, your daughter is stabilizing, but we need to run tests immediately. Her cancer is progressing faster than expected. She paused. We'll need a deposit of $5,000 before we can proceed with treatment. The number hit Clara like a physical blow. I don't have that. I just lost my job today, but she needs treatment now. I understand, but hospital policy. Please. The word cracked. She's 7 years old. She's dying. I'll pay whatever you need. Just help her first. The nurse's expression shifted to something softer, sadder. I'm sorry. Without payment, we can only stabilize her condition. You'll need to make other arrangements for ongoing treatment. Clara stood frozen. Stabilize. The word meant keep alive, but not actually save. It meant watching Maya suffer, while Clara scrambled for money that didn't exist. Her pride screamed at her to figure this out alone, to refuse help, to survive the way she always had, through sheer stubborn will. But Maya's blood-spotted palm flashed through her mind. Clara pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She had no family, no friends with money, no one to call. She opened a new email, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She started typing, not knowing if anyone would read it, not knowing if it would matter. The subject line was simple. Your wife is lying to you. She poured everything into the message. What Maya overheard, the firing, Lydia's paranoia, the danger they were in. Her finger hovered over the send button. She hit send. A loading circle spun on the screen, then stopped. Error. Message failed to deliver. The recipient's inbox is currently unreachable. Clara stared at the screen, then tried again. Same error. A cold realization crept over her. Lydia Harrington had money, power, connections. Of course, she'd make sure a fired cleaning woman couldn't reach her billionaire husband. In the waiting room chair, Clara pulled her knees to her chest, the useless phone clutched in her hand. No email, no job, no money, and no way out. Miles away, Lorenzo Harrington's office occupied the top floor of a building that touched the clouds. Everything in this room screamed success. Everything except the man sitting in it. He stared at the quarterly reports without seeing them. Numbers that used to thrill him now felt hollow. His marriage to Lydia had been a merger more than a union. Two powerful families combining assets. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped pretending it was anything else. His assistant knocked. "Mr. Harrington, your morning mail." Lorenzo waved without looking up. She placed a stack of envelopes on his desk. Business correspondence, invitations to galas he wouldn't attend, the usual noise of wealth. He was about to dismiss it all when something caught his eye. An envelope addressed in a child's handwriting, uneven letters, a hand-drawn star in the corner. Lorenzo picked it up, curious despite himself. He opened it carefully. The letter inside was written on the back of a coloring page, a princess castle half filled with crayon. The message was cramped, some words misspelled, but devastatingly clear. "Dear Mr. Harrington, my name is Maya. I heard bad people talking about you today. A pretty lady named Lydia and a man named David. They had papers. They said they would switch files so you lose everything. They said no one would find out. But I found out. I'm sorry I was listening. I didn't mean to. But I think you should know. They seemed really mean. I hope this helps. From Maya." Lorenzo read it twice, 3 times. His pulse quickened with each pass. The detail was too specific to be a prank. A child wouldn't know about file switches or corporate sabotage, but she would know what she overheard, and she named Lydia, his wife. Lorenzo's hand tightened around the paper. 6 months ago, he'd noticed discrepancies in the acquisition deal, small things that didn't add up. He'd mentioned it to Lydia over dinner. She'd laughed it off, kissed his cheek, told him he was working too hard. He'd believed her. Now, staring at a 7-year-old's handwriting, he realized how stupid that had been. Lorenzo picked up his phone, dialed the one person he trusted more than anyone in the city. The voice on the other end was calm, measured, the voice of a man who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. Julian had been Lorenzo's crisis manager for 5 years, his best friend for longer. Ex-military medic turned corporate fixer, Julian handled the problems Lorenzo couldn't solve with money. "I need you," Lorenzo said without preamble. "Now." 20 minutes later, Julian walked through the office door. "You sounded tense," Julian said, dropping into the chair across from Lorenzo's desk. "What happened?" Lorenzo slid the letter across the marble surface. Julian read it in silence. When he finished, his expression was unreadable. The face of a man trained to keep emotions locked behind walls. "A child wrote this," Julian said finally. "I know. A child who overheard your wife planning corporate sabotage." "I know." Julian set the letter down carefully. "Lorenzo, if this is real, it is. How do you know?" "Because I've suspected something was wrong for months. I just didn't want to believe it." Lorenzo's voice was flat, dead. "Lydia's been pushing hard on the Meridian acquisition. She brought David Monroe in as a consultant. I didn't question it because..." He trailed off. "Because she's your wife," Julian finished. Julian leaned back, his mind already working through logistics. "Do you want me to investigate quietly?" "Yes, but first, I want you to find the child who wrote this." Lorenzo turned from the window. "She's in danger. If Lydia knows someone overheard, she'll eliminate the threat." Julian's voice was grim. "Yeah, I'm on it." He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. The letter was mailed yesterday based on the postmark. Local. No return address, but it's written by a kid, so she probably lives close to a mailbox. He looked up. "Any idea where this conversation happened?" "My wife was at the Grand Mariposa yesterday." "Then that's where I start." Alone, Lorenzo returned to the windows. Somewhere in this city, a child had risked everything to tell him the truth. A child whose mother probably didn't even know what she'd done. He pulled out his phone and opened a secure folder, the one where he kept evidence of things that weren't supposed to exist. He started making notes, names, dates, discrepancies he'd ignored. By the time he was done, the pattern was undeniable. Lydia hadn't just betrayed him. She'd been systematically dismantling his company from the inside for months, positioning herself to take control the moment the Meridian deal collapsed. And he'd been too proud to see it. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. He pressed the intercom. "Cancel my afternoon meetings and get my lawyer on the phone. Tell him it's urgent." His assistant's voice was carefully neutral. "Yes, Mr. Harrington." He ended the call and stared at the city again. Somewhere down there, a little girl named Maya was probably scared. Probably didn't understand what she'd stumbled into. But she'd saved him anyway. Lorenzo made a silent promise to the skyline. "I'll find you, and I'll make sure you're safe." Across the city, Julian walked into the Grand Mariposa Hotel through the main entrance, not the service door. People noticed him, hard not to with his presence. He moved to the front desk with the ease of someone comfortable in expensive spaces. "I need to speak with your head of security," he said, producing a business card, "regarding an incident yesterday involving a terminated employee." The clerk's expression shifted to cautious professionalism. "One moment, sir." 10 minutes later, Julian sat across from the security chief in a cramped office that smelled like coffee and surveillance equipment. The walls were lined with monitors showing every angle of the hotel. "We had a situation yesterday," the security chief said, pulling up files on his computer. "Employee termination, cleaning staff. The owner's wife personally fired her for corporate espionage." Julian's expression didn't change. "Corporate espionage. That's a serious accusation. Mrs. Harrington caught the woman's daughter eavesdropping outside the penthouse suite. Made a scene. We had to escort them both out." "The daughter?" Julian leaned forward slightly. "How old? Maybe 7, 8? Small kid. Looked sick, honestly." Something cold settled in Julian's chest. "Sick how?" "Pale. Skinny. Like she wasn't eating enough." The security chief shrugged. "Not our problem once they're off property." Julian's hands curled into fists under the desk. "I need the employee's name and address." "Can't give out that information without—" Julian slid an envelope across the desk. Inside was more cash than the security chief made in 2 months. "Now you can." The man hesitated for exactly 3 seconds before opening a drawer and pulling out a file. Julian memorized it, stood, and left without another word. The address led him to a neighborhood where paint peeled from buildings and graffiti marked territory. Julian's car stood out like a diamond in dirt. He parked and climbed 3 flights of stairs in a building where the elevator hung lifelessly in its shaft. Apartment 3C. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder. "Clara Reyes? My name is Julian Cortez. I'm here about your daughter." Still nothing. Julian tried the doorknob. Locked, but the lock was cheap. Old. He glanced down the hallway, empty, then pulled a slim toolkit from his jacket. 30 seconds later, the door clicked open. The apartment was small, clean, and heartbreakingly empty. Children's drawings covered the walls, a worn couch, a kitchen the size of a closet. Everything was arranged with desperate care to hide poverty, but no one was home. Julian moved through the space, his trained eye cataloging details. Medications on the kitchen counter, cancer treatments, expensive ones. Bills stacked on the table, all marked overdue in angry red letters. A photograph stuck to the refrigerator. Clara and Maya at a park, both smiling like the world wasn't trying to crush them. Julian pulled out his phone and took pictures of everything, the medications, the bills, the address labels. Then he noticed something on the floor near the couch, a small piece of paper with crayon marks. He picked it up. It was a drawing, a castle, half-colored, the same design as the back of Maya's letter. She'd been here, recently. Julian's phone buzzed. A message from one of his contacts, a nurse he'd helped 6 months ago who owed him a favor. "Found your Clara Reyes. She's at St. Catherine's Hospital, ER. Her daughter was admitted last night. Critical condition." Julian was moving before he finished reading. He locked the apartment behind him and took the stairs 3 at a time. St. Catherine's Hospital was 40 minutes across town. Julian made it in 25. The ER was chaotic, crying children, overwhelmed staff, the mechanical beep of machines keeping people alive. Julian approached the front desk with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere. "I'm looking for Maya Reyes. Admitted last night." The nurse checked her computer. "Are you family?" "Friend of the family. Her mother asked me to come." The nurse's expression softened slightly. "Room 7, but the doctor's with her now. You'll have to wait." Julian didn't wait. He moved through the ER, following the room numbers, until he found 7. Through the small window in the door, he could see a little girl on a hospital bed, pale, fragile, oxygen mask covering half her face. Machines surrounded her like mechanical vultures. And beside the bed, slumped in a chair with her head in her hands, was Clara. She looked destroyed. Her uniform was still on from yesterday, wrinkled and stained. Her hair hung in tangles. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Julian knocked softly. Clara's head snapped up, her eyes red and swollen. She stared at him through the window, confused, defensive, terrified. He opened the door slowly. "Clara Reyes?" She stood, positioning herself between Julian and Maya. "Who are you?" "My name is Julian. I work for Lorenzo Harrington." He kept his hands visible, his voice calm. "Your daughter sent him a letter about what she overheard." Clara's face went white. "I didn't. She wasn't supposed to. She probably saved his life." Julian's voice was gentle now. "And maybe her own, though she doesn't know it yet." Clara's legs seemed to give out. She collapsed back into the chair. "She mailed it?" "I didn't even. No, she's brave, like her mother." "I'm not brave." Clara's voice broke. Julian glanced at Maya. So small, so still. "What do the doctors say?" "That she needs treatment I can't afford. That without a $5,000 deposit, they can only stabilize her." Clara's hands clenched into fists. "They're going to let my daughter die because I'm poor." "No," Julian said quietly. "They're not." Clara looked up, something desperate and dangerous in her eyes. "What?" "Lorenzo needs to talk to you. About what Maya heard, about Lydia. But first," he pulled out his phone. "First, we're going to make sure your daughter gets the treatment she needs." "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. Your daughter provided Lorenzo with information that could save his company. Consider this compensation." Julian dialed a number, his eyes never leaving Clara's face. "Lorenzo, I found her, and we have a problem." Once Julian explained, Lorenzo replied immediately, "I'll be there in 20 minutes." Before Clara could say anything, Maya stirred. Her eyes fluttered open behind the oxygen mask. She saw Julian first, a stranger, tall and serious. Fear flashed across her small face. "Mom?" Julian went to call a nurse, and Clara was beside her daughter instantly. "I'm here, baby, I'm here," Clara whispered, though she didn't sound sure. A nurse entered, checking Maya's vitals. "She needs rest. Everyone who is not in the immediate family needs to leave." Julian nodded but didn't move toward the door. Instead, he walked to the nurse's station just outside the room. Clara watched through the window as he spoke with the head nurse, pulled out a corporate card, and made arrangements with the kind of ease that came from having money solve problems. When he returned, his expression was carefully neutral. "The hospital will proceed with treatment. We've authorized payment for the initial round and secured a specialist consultation for tomorrow." Clara's breath caught. "I can't pay you back." "You're not paying back. You're accepting help." Julian's voice was firm, but not unkind. "There's a difference." "I don't accept help." The words came out automatically defensive. "Then accept it for her." Julian nodded toward Maya. "Because pride is expensive, and right now, you can't afford it." The words hit like a slap. Clara opened her mouth to argue, but what could she say? He was right. Her pride had kept her isolated for years, had kept her from asking for help even when Maya got sick. It nearly cost her everything. She looked at her daughter, pale and fragile in the hospital bed. "Okay," Clara whispered. "Okay." Julian's expression softened just slightly. "Lorenzo will be here soon. He'll want to talk about what Maya heard. Are you up for that?" "Do I have a choice?" "You always have a choice." Clara laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "No, I really don't." Through the window, the city lights began to glow as evening approached. Somewhere In that sprawl of glass and steel, Lorenzo Harrington was getting into a car, driving toward a hospital where a cleaning woman and her dying daughter waited. And in a penthouse across town, Lydia Harrington poured herself wine and smiled, completely unaware that a 7-year-old's crayon-written letter was about to destroy everything she'd built. Lorenzo Harrington arrived at St. Catherine's Hospital like a storm contained in expensive fabric. People noticed, they always did, but Lorenzo barely registered the stares. His mind was locked on one thing, finding the child who'd saved him from his own blindness. Julian met him at the entrance, his expression carefully neutral. "She's stable, for now. Show me." They moved through the ER corridors, past the waiting families and overwhelmed staff. "That's her," Julian said quietly. "Maya Reyes, 7 years old, acute lymphoblastic leukemia." Through the glass, Lorenzo saw a small figure in a hospital bed, drowning in white sheets and medical equipment. An oxygen mask covered half her face. Her mother sat beside her, head bowed, one hand clutching Maya's small fingers like a lifeline. Clara Reyes looked like she'd been through a war. Lorenzo felt something shift in his chest. Shame, anger, recognition of a debt he could never fully repay. "The mother?" he asked. "Clara, 28, 3 jobs before yesterday. Now 0. Julian's voice was flat, factual. "Lydia fired her, publicly. Made sure every hotel in the city knows her name." "Of course she did." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. He moved toward the door. Julian's hand on his arm stopped him. "Lorenzo, she's scared. And she has every reason not to trust people like us." "People like us?" "People with money who think they can fix everything by writing a check." Julian's eyes were steady. "Go slow." Lorenzo nodded once and opened the door. Clara's head snapped up, her eyes dark, defensive, exhausted, locked onto his face. Recognition flashed immediately. She stood, positioning herself between Lorenzo and Maya, her body language screaming protection. "Mrs. Reyes, it's Ms." The correction was sharp. Clara's expression didn't soften. "She's 7 years old. She doesn't know what she heard or what it means. If your wife finds out Maya sent that letter, she won't." Lorenzo's voice was firm. "I promise you that. Your promises don't mean anything to me." Clara's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady. "You're married to the woman who fired me for something I didn't do, who made sure I can't work anywhere in this city. And now you're here because my daughter, my sick daughter, accidentally became useful to you." The words landed like physical blows. Lorenzo absorbed them because they were true, every single one. "You're right," he said quietly. Clara blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. "Everything you just said is right." Lorenzo took a breath. "But your daughter saw what I couldn't. She wrote me a letter because she thought it was the right thing to do. And she was right." "So what?" Clara's voice cracked. "You want to thank her, give us money, and make yourself feel better about your wife destroying us?" "No, I want to make sure she lives." The silence that followed was deafening. Behind Clara, Maya stirred. Her small voice, muffled by the oxygen mask, cut through the tension. "Mom?" Clara turned immediately, her defensive posture melting into pure maternal tenderness. "I'm here, baby." Maya's eyes found Lorenzo. Even through exhaustion and illness, there was intelligence there. Curiosity. "Mr. Harrington?" Lorenzo moved closer, slowly, and knelt beside the bed so he was at her eye level. "And you must be Maya." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Did you get my letter? I got Mom fired. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help." "You did help. More than you know." Lorenzo's voice was gentle but certain. "And your mom being fired isn't your fault. It's mine. And I'm going to fix it." "You can't fix everything," Clara said from behind him, her voice barely above a whisper. Lorenzo stood and turned to face her. "No, but I can fix this." He pulled out his phone, made a call. "Dr. Ashford, it's Lorenzo Harrington. I need you at St. Catherine's Hospital immediately. Pediatric oncology case. Yes, I'm authorizing a full treatment." "Thank you." He ended the call and looked at Clara. Her expression was frozen somewhere between disbelief and anger. "I don't want charity." The words came out automatically, desperate. "It's not charity." Lorenzo's voice was quiet but firm. "Your daughter helped me. This is me paying a debt because Maya deserves to grow up. And I want to make that happen." The fight went out of Clara all at once. She sank back into the chair beside Maya's bed, her shoulders shaking. Clara looked up at Lorenzo. Why? Why do you care? Lorenzo was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. Because for the past 5 years, I've been surrounded by people who only tell me what I want to hear. People who smile to my face and plot behind my back. Your daughter's 7 years old, sick, scared. And she still chose to tell the truth, even though it could have hurt her. He paused. That kind of integrity is rare, and it deserves to be protected. Maya's small voice cut through the room. Mom, I think we should say yes. Clara laughed, a broken, wet sound. She wiped her eyes. You think so? Yeah, he seems nice, and I'm really tired of being sick. Me too, baby, me too. Clara turned to Lorenzo. Pride and desperation warred on her face. Finally, desperation won. Okay, but I'm paying you back. I don't know how or when, but I will. Ms. Reyes, that's non-negotiable. I don't care if it takes 10 years. Lorenzo studied her. This woman who'd lost everything and still insisted on maintaining her dignity. Something in his chest tightened. Respect, admiration, and something else he couldn't quite name. Deal, he said quietly. Julian stepped forward. Dr. Ashford will need Maya's full medical history. I'll coordinate with the hospital staff and make sure everything's ready. Then he left. Lorenzo lingered, his eyes moving between Maya and Clara, the child who'd saved him and the mother who'd raised her to have that kind of courage. There's one more thing, Lorenzo said. I'm going to need your testimony about what Maya overheard, about how Lydia reacted, all of it. Clara straightened. You're going after your wife. Ex-wife. The divorce papers are being filed tomorrow. His voice was ice. And yes, I'm going after her. For what she did to my company and what she did to you. I'll testify, whatever you need. Thank you. Lorenzo moved toward the door, then paused. Ms. Reyes, your daughter saved my company, but I think maybe she saved something else too. What? My ability to trust that good people still exist. He left before Clara could respond. In the hallway, Julian was coordinating with hospital staff. Lorenzo stood at the window, watching Clara hold Maya's hand, whispering something that made the little girl smile. Julian appeared beside him. You okay? I don't know. Lorenzo's voice was quiet. I just realized I've spent 5 years in a marriage where I felt nothing. And in 10 minutes with that woman and her daughter, I felt everything. Julian's expression shifted slightly, something almost like concern. Be careful, Lorenzo. Of what? You're vulnerable right now, angry at Lydia, grateful to Clara. That's a dangerous combination. I'm just trying to help. I know, just remember why you're really here. Julian's voice was gentle but firm. Lorenzo said nothing. Across the city, in a penthouse that cost more per month than most people earned in a year, Lydia Harrington's phone rang. Mrs. Harrington, this is security at St. Catherine's Hospital. Your husband was just here, visiting a patient named Maya Reyes. Lydia's wineglass paused halfway to her lips. Reyes? Lydia's eyes narrowed. She set down the glass very carefully. I see. Thank you for letting me know. She ended the call and stared at the city lights. A slow, cold smile spread across her perfect face. So, she whispered to the empty room. The little rat and her mother found a way to squeak after all. She picked up her phone and dialed. David, we have a problem. That cleaning woman and her daughter, they talked. We need to move up our timeline. Yes, tonight. I don't care if it's risky. If Lorenzo's digging into this, we have 48 hours before everything falls apart. She listened for a moment. And David? Find out everything about Clara Reyes and her daughter. Every detail. Because if they think Lorenzo Harrington can protect them from me, they're about to learn a very expensive lesson. She hung up, drained her wine, and began making preparations to destroy the one thing her husband cared about. Lorenzo didn't sleep. He spent the night in his office, surrounded by evidence that painted his marriage as the elaborate lie it had always been. Financial records, email chains, meeting notes where Lydia had systematically positioned herself to take control of his company the moment the Meridian deal collapsed. Every document was another knife in his back. By dawn, his lawyer had compiled everything into a legal arsenal. By 8 a.m., Lorenzo was walking into the house with divorce papers in hand and rage burning cold in his chest. Lydia didn't look up when Lorenzo entered. "You're home early or late, hard to tell these days. We need to talk." Lorenzo's voice was flat, empty of everything except purpose. "About what?" Lydia set down her tablet, her expression mildly curious. Lorenzo dropped a folder on the table. Documents spilled across the expensive marble. "I have emails, financial records, recordings from security cameras at the Meridian offices showing you and David Monroe switching files 3 weeks ago." Lydia's smile never wavered, but her knuckles went white around her espresso cup. "Those could be fabricated." "They're not, and we both know it." Lorenzo pulled out the divorce papers. "Sign these." "Excuse me?" "Our marriage is over. It's been over for years. We both just pretended because it was convenient." He slid the papers across the table. Lydia stood slowly, her silk robe flowing around her like water. "You think you can just discard me? After everything I've built alongside you? You built nothing. You plotted, you schemed, you sabotaged it." Lorenzo's voice was ice. "And you got caught by a 7-year-old because you were too arrogant to check if anyone was listening. That little brat and her pathetic mother, they are under my protection now. Touch them, threaten them, even look at them wrong, and I'll make sure every journalist in this city knows exactly what you tried to do." Lydia's mask finally cracked. Fury twisted her perfect features into something ugly. "You're choosing them? A cleaning woman and her pathetic child over your own wife? You stopped being my wife years ago." Lorenzo turned toward the door. "My lawyers will be in touch." "Lorenzo." Her voice dropped to something dangerous. "If you do this, I will destroy you. I'll drag your name through every tabloid. I'll make sure everyone knows you abandoned your wife for some desperate gold digger." "Do it." Lorenzo looked back at her, and his expression was colder than she'd ever seen it. "Because the story I'll tell is better. The one where my wife tried to steal my company and got exposed by a brave little girl with more integrity in her pinky finger than you have in your entire body." He left. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. Behind him, Lydia stood alone in the penthouse, surrounded by luxury and drowning in rage. She picked up her phone, fingers shaking, and dialed. "David." "He knows everything. We need to execute the backup plan now." At the hospital, morning light filtered through the windows of room 7. Maya slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, her breathing steady, color returning to her cheeks after Dr. Ashford started treatment. Clara sat beside her daughter's bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lorenzo's face. She didn't know how to accept that, didn't know how to exist in a world where billionaires showed up and solved problems she'd been drowning in for years. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Julian entered carrying coffee and a bag from an actual bakery, not the hospital cafeteria. "Thought you might need this," he said, setting both on the side table. Clara stared at the coffee as it might bite her. "You don't have to keep checking on us." "I know." Julian settled into the chair across from her. "But Maya's asleep. You look like you haven't eaten in 24 hours, and I had nothing better to do. Don't you have rich people problems to solve? Solving them as we speak." His smile was slight but genuine. "Lorenzo's divorcing Lydia today. It's going to be messy." Clara's hands tightened around the coffee cup. "Because of Maya's letter. Because Lydia's a criminal who got caught. Maya just happened to be the one who caught her." Julian's voice was gentle. "This isn't your fault. Or hers." "Then why does it feel like we destroyed someone's marriage?" "Because you're a good person who thinks about consequences." "But Clara," Julian leaned forward slightly, "that marriage was already destroyed. Lydia did that herself. You and Maya just pulled back the curtain." Clara took a sip of coffee. It was good. Too good. The kind of coffee that costs more than she used to make in an hour. "I don't know how to navigate this. People like you and Lorenzo. You exist in a different world. Maybe. But that doesn't mean you don't belong in it." Something in his voice made Clara look up. Julian was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something warm, protective, careful. "Why are you being so kind to us?" she asked quietly. "Because you raised a daughter brave enough to do the right thing, even when it cost everything. Because—" He stopped himself. "Because you deserve kindness." The moment stretched between them. Then Maya stirred. "Mom?" Clara was beside her instantly. I'm here, baby. How do you feel? Better. Maya's voice was stronger, clearer. Maya's eyes found Julian. You came back. Of course I did. I brought you something. Julian pulled a small package from his jacket, a coloring book with princesses and a fresh set of crayons. Thought you might be bored. Maya's face lit up in a way Clara hadn't seen in months. Thank you. You're welcome, but I expect a drawing in return. Deal? Deal. Julian stood, preparing to leave. Clara walked him to the door. Thank you, she said quietly. For the coffee, the coloring book, all of it. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Clara's voice was firm. You keep showing up, helping without being asked. That means something. Julian's expression softened. Clara, He stopped, seeming to reconsider. If you need anything, anything at all, call me. He handed her a business card with his direct number. Their fingers brushed during the exchange. Neither pulled away immediately. I will, Clara said, though her voice was barely above a whisper. Julian left. Clara stood in the doorway watching him go, something unfamiliar and terrifying stirring in her chest. She didn't notice Lorenzo standing at the end of the hallway, watching the entire exchange. Didn't see his expression tighten, didn't see the way his hands clenched into fists before he forced them to relax. He'd come to tell Clara about the divorce, to assure her Lydia couldn't hurt them anymore. But now he stood frozen, watching Clara stare after Julian with something soft in her eyes. Something that looked like warmth, maybe more. Lorenzo turned and left before either of them could see him. In the elevator, he pressed his fingers against his eyes, trying to understand the hollow ache in his chest. He'd known Julian for years, trusted him with his life. But now, watching his best friend make Clara smile, Lorenzo felt something he had no right to feel. Jealousy. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. I have gone through Clara Reyes's qualifications. Schedule a meeting with her. I want to discuss a job opportunity as soon as Maya's stable enough for Clara to step away. He ended the call and stared at his reflection in the elevator's polished doors. He was doing this for business reasons. Clara spoke multiple languages, had intelligence and resourcefulness. She'd be valuable in his international division. That's all this was. Business. The lie tasted bitter even as he told it to himself. By afternoon, Lorenzo had composed himself. He returned to the hospital with documents outlining a career development program. Clara met him in a private consultation room. Ms. Reyes, I have a proposal, Lorenzo began, sliding the documents across the table. Clara read quickly, her eyes widening with each paragraph. You're offering me a job? A position as junior liaison for international relations. You speak 4 languages. I need that in my organization. He kept his voice professional, businesslike. It comes with full benefits, education assistance, and a salary that will cover Maya's treatment independently. Why? Claire's eyes searched his face. Why are you doing this? Because you're qualified. Because... He stopped, the professional mask slipping slightly. Because you deserve to work with the qualifications you have. Clara set down the documents carefully. This isn't charity. It's an opportunity. What you do with it is up to you. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I accept. On one condition. What? If I fail, you fire me like anyone else. No special treatment because of Maya or what happened with your wife. I earn this position or I lose it. Lorenzo felt something shift in his chest again. Respect, admiration, and that other thing he refused to name. Deal. They shook hands. When Clara returned to Maya's room, Julian was reading to her from the new coloring book, making up silly voices that had Maya giggling. Clara watched them for a moment, something warm spreading through her chest. Julian looked up, caught her staring, and smiled. And in that moment, Clara realized something terrifying. She was starting to care about both these men in ways she had no business caring. Down the hall, Lorenzo stood at the window overlooking the city. His phone buzzed, a message from his lawyer. Lydia's filed a countersuit. She's claiming you abandoned her for Clara Reyes. This is going to get ugly. Lorenzo read the message twice, then looked back toward Maya's room where Clara, Julian, and Maya formed a picture of something he'd never had. Genuine warmth, easy laughter, connection. He whispered to his reflection, if I ordered, would she ever choose me, even after everything Lydia did to her? The question hung in the air, unanswered. And across the city, Lydia smiled at her own reflection, already planning how to destroy the 3 people who dared to expose her. 5. 3 weeks later, Clara stood in front of a mirror in a bathroom that still felt too clean, too expensive, too wrong. The professional blazer fit perfectly. Her hair was styled. She looked like someone who belonged in a corporate office. She felt like an imposter. "Mom?" Maya's voice called from the bedroom of their new apartment, another gift from Lorenzo that Clara had initially refused until he'd pointed out that living close to the hospital was practical, not charity. Clara stepped out. Maya sat on the bed, healthier now, color in her cheeks, energy in her voice. "You look pretty," Maya said, grinning. "I look uncomfortable." "That too." Maya giggled. "But also pretty." Clara kissed her daughter's forehead. The new job started today, junior liaison for international relations. Clara had spent 3 weeks in intensive training, business etiquette, legal frameworks, diplomatic protocols. Her brain felt stuffed with information she wasn't sure she'd ever actually use. Lorenzo's office building rose 40 stories into the sky. Clara rode the elevator up, watching the numbers climb, her stomach churning with nerves. The doors opened onto the executive floor, all glass and steel and polished surfaces that reflected her uncertain face back at her. "Ms. Reyes," Lorenzo's assistant appeared, professional and efficient. "Mr. Harrington is expecting you." Clara followed her down a corridor lined with modern art that probably cost more than Clara's entire life savings. He stood when she entered, and Clara's breath caught slightly. He was in full business mode, but when he looked at her, something softened in his expression. "Clara, please sit." They'd moved to first names somewhere in the past 3 weeks. Clara still wasn't used to it. She sat across from his desk, acutely aware of the power imbalance. He was her boss now, her benefactor. The man who'd saved her daughter's life. The lines between gratitude, obligation, and something else were impossibly tangled. "How's Maya?" Lorenzo asked, his voice gentler than his appearance suggested. "Good. Great, actually. Dr. Ashford says she's responding better than expected." "I'm glad." He meant it. Clara could hear it in his voice. "And you? How are you adjusting?" "I'm adjusting." Clara chose her words carefully. "It's a lot. The training, the apartment, all of it. I keep waiting to wake up and find out it was a dream." "It's not a dream. It's what you earned." Lorenzo leaned forward slightly, then slid a folder across the desk. "Your first assignment. We're negotiating a partnership with a French hotel chain. I need someone who can read the room, understand the cultural nuances, and tell me what they're not saying." Clara opened the folder. Pages of contracts, financial projections, meeting schedules. "When?" "Tomorrow, Paris, 3 days." Clara's head snapped up. "Paris? I can't. Maya." "Julian's already arranged for Dr. Ashford to check on Maya daily while you're gone. The nanny will stay overnight, and I'll have my personal security watching the building." Lorenzo's voice was calm, assured. "You've thought of everything. It's my job to think of everything." He paused. "Clara, I know this is fast. If you need more time..." "No." Clara cut him off, surprising herself. "No, I can do this. I want to do this." Something flickered in Lorenzo's eyes. Pride, approval, something else she couldn't name. "Then we leave tomorrow at 6 a.m. The meeting ended. Clara stood to leave, but Lorenzo's voice stopped her at the door. "Clara," she turned back. "You look professional. It suits you." The compliment hung in the air between them, heavy with things neither of them said. Clara nodded once and left, her heart beating too fast. In the elevator, she pressed her forehead against the cool metal wall and tried to slow her breathing. 3 days in Paris with Lorenzo Harrington. Alone. Professional. Nothing complicated about that at all. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "Heard about Paris. Congratulations. Coffee when you're back? I want to hear everything." Clara smiled despite herself. Julian had been visiting Maya regularly, bringing books and games, making her laugh with stories from his military days. He never asked for anything, never expected gratitude, just showed up, steady and warm and safe. She texted back, "Deal." By evening, Clara was back at the apartment, helping Maya with homework at the kitchen table. A knock interrupted them. Clara opened the door to find Julian standing there with takeout bags and that slight smile that made her feel steadier somehow. Thought you might be too busy packing to cook, he said. Maya squealed and ran to hug him. Julian, Clara watched them together, Julian kneeling to Maya's level, listening intently as she showed him a drawing she'd made. Something in her chest twisted, not painful, just unfamiliar. They ate dinner together, the three of them, and it felt easy, natural, like something that could become routine if Clara let it. After Maya went to bed, Julian helped Clara clean up. They moved around the small kitchen in comfortable silence until Julian spoke. Clara. She turned. He was closer than she'd realized, his expression serious. I need to tell you something before you leave. Julian's voice was low, careful. I've been trying to find the right time, but there isn't one, so... Julian, let me finish, please. He took a breath. You deserve someone who chooses you first, always. You deserve someone who sees you for who you are, not what you represent. Clara's heart hammered. What are you saying? I'm saying that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I want to be that person. But I also know you're not ready. You're overwhelmed, grateful to Lorenzo, trying to figure out your new life. So I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. The confession hung between them, vulnerable and honest. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came. How could she respond when she didn't understand her own feelings? You don't have to say anything, Julian said gently. Just think about it, about what you want, not what you owe. He moved toward the door. Clara followed, her mind racing. Julian, She stopped, started again. I don't know what I feel right now. Everything's happening so fast, and I'm just trying to keep up and... I know. He smiled, but there was something sad in it. That's why I'm not asking for an answer. Just be careful in Paris, okay? Careful of what? Everything. His eyes held hers. Lorenzo's a good man, but he's also hurting from his divorce, and you're the person who helped him see the truth. That's powerful. Just make sure you know the difference between what you feel and what he's projecting. He left before Clara could respond. She walked to Maya's room, watched her daughter sleep peacefully for the first time in years. Everything good in her life right now came from one choice: accepting Lorenzo's help. Clara returned to her bedroom and stared at her packed suitcase. 2 men, 2 different kinds of safety. Julian, who showed up without being asked. Lorenzo, who offered opportunities she'd never dreamed of. She didn't know which one scared her more. Across the city, Julian's warning from weeks ago played in Lorenzo's mind. Lorenzo had dismissed it then. Now, thinking about 3 days alone with Claire in Paris, he wasn't so sure. His phone rang. Julian. Just checking in before Paris, Julian said, his tone carefully neutral. Do you need anything? No, everything's arranged. Silence stretched between them, 2 friends who suddenly had an unspoken tension neither wanted to acknowledge. Lorenzo, Julian said finally, Claire's been through a lot. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. What's that supposed to mean? It means she's not a replacement for what Lydia took from you. She's a person, with a daughter, who's trying to rebuild her life. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're looking at her the way drowning men look at life preservers. And you're not? The question landed like a punch. Julian was quiet for a long moment. At least I'm honest about what I want, Julian said quietly. Can you say the same? The call ended. Paris was a mistake. Claire knew it the moment the plane landed. 3 days alone with Lorenzo in a city built for romance, pretending everything between them was purely professional. It was a lie waiting to explode. The negotiations went flawlessly. Clara read the room exactly as Lorenzo hoped. By day 2, the deal was signed. By day 3, Lorenzo looked at her differently. You were brilliant, he said over dinner at a restaurant where the wine cost more than Clara used to make in a month. I knew you were capable, but watching you work, don't. Clara set down her glass. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I'm something more than an employee you're helping. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. What if you are? He said finally. Clara's breath caught. Lorenzo, I know, it's complicated. My divorce isn't finalized. You work for me. There are 1,000 reasons this is inappropriate. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. But Clara, in 5 years of marriage, I never felt what I feel when you walk into a room. I never looked forward to anything the way I look forward to your opinions on contracts. I never. Stop. Clara's voice was firm. You're confusing gratitude with something else. I helped expose Lydia. Maya's letter saved your company. You feel indebted, maybe even guilty. That's not the same as, don't tell me what I feel. The words hung between them, sharp and honest. Clara stood, her hands trembling. I need air. She left the restaurant, stepping into the Parisian night. The city was beautiful, lights reflecting off the Seine, couples strolling hand in hand, everything soft and romantic and wrong. Her phone buzzed, a video call from Julian. She answered without thinking. Julian's face appeared, concerned. You okay? You look. I don't know what I am. Clara's voice cracked. Julian, I don't know how to do this. Do what? Any of it. The job, the new life. Lorenzo just. She stopped. He said things I can't unhear. Julian's expression shifted, something hardening in his eyes. What kind of things? That he feels something when I'm around. Clara pressed her hand to her forehead. And the worst part? I don't know if I feel it too, or if I'm just grateful he saved Maya. Clara. Julian's voice was gentle but firm. Listen to me. You don't owe Lorenzo your heart because he paid for Maya's treatment. Gratitude isn't love, and love that starts from obligation will suffocate you eventually. But what if it's not just gratitude? What if I actually... She couldn't finish. Then you need to be sure, because Lorenzo's world comes with expectations, scrutiny, and pressure. Can you handle being the billionaire's ex-maid girlfriend? The press will crucify you. Lydia already is. Clara's stomach twisted. She'd seen the articles, the tabloids calling her a gold digger, a homewrecker, worse. Lydia's PR machine was relentless. And if I chose you? Clara asked quietly. What then? Julian smiled, but it was sad. Then you get someone who shows up, who doesn't fix everything with money but stands beside you while you fix it yourself. Someone who loves Maya because she's Maya, not because saving her makes him feel heroic. He paused. But Clara, you shouldn't choose me to escape Lorenzo. You should choose me because you actually want me. I do want... Clara stopped. Did she? Or did she want the safety Julian represented? The simplicity? Friendship? I have to go, she whispered. She ended the call before he could finish. Behind her, Lorenzo's voice cut through the night. Was that Julian? Clara turned. Lorenzo stood in the restaurant doorway, his expression unreadable. Yes. Are you in love with him? The question was so direct it stole Clara's breath. I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Clara's voice rose. Lorenzo, 2 months ago I was cleaning your floors. Now I'm in Paris, wearing designer clothes, living in an apartment I didn't earn, raising my daughter on someone else's money. I don't know what I feel because I don't know who I am anymore. You're the woman who raised a daughter brave enough to tell the truth, who refused charity even when her child was dying, who learned an entire career in 3 weeks because you refused to fail. Lorenzo stepped closer. That's who you are. The rest is just circumstances changing. And you? Who are you to me? My boss? My savior? The man whose wife destroyed my life? Clara's voice broke. Because I can't separate those things. Every time I look at you, I see everything you've given me. And I don't know if what I feel is real or just... debt. Lorenzo flinched. You think I saved you to trap you? No. I think you saved me because you're good. But that doesn't mean I know how to love you without wondering if it's because I owe you everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Then maybe, Lorenzo said quietly, we both need time to figure out what's real. They flew back to New York the next morning. At the hospital, Maya was finishing another round of treatment. Clara arrived to find Julian sitting beside her bed, reading aloud from a storybook. Maya laughed at something he said, her face bright with health and happiness. Julian looked up as Clara entered. Mom? Maya's voice was excited. Julian brought me a new book. It's about a princess who saves herself. Sounds like someone I know, Clara said softly. Julian stood. I should go. Let you two have time together. As he passed Clara, he paused. I meant what I said in Paris. No pressure, no expectations. Just think about what you actually want, not what you think you should want. He left. Clara sat beside Maya's bed, watching her daughter color a picture of a castle, just like the one from the letter that had changed everything. Mom? Maya looked up. Are you okay? I don't know, baby. Is it because of Mr. Harrington and Julian? Clara's head snapped toward her daughter. What? Maya shrugged, wise beyond her 7 years. They both look at you funny, like you're the princess and they're trying to figure out how to save you. But you don't need saving, Mom. You saved us. Tears pricked Clara's eyes. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You were just too busy to notice. Maya grinned. Clara pulled her daughter close. That evening, Clara stood in her apartment, the one Lorenzo provided, filled with furniture she didn't buy in a neighborhood she couldn't afford. Her phone sat on the counter with 2 unsent messages. One to Lorenzo. I need time to figure out who I am without your help. One to Julian. I need time to figure out if what I feel is real or just safety. She stared at both messages, her finger hovering over the send button. A knock at the door interrupted her. Claire opened it to find Lydia Harrington standing there, perfectly composed and venomous. Hello, Clara. We need to talk about what you're doing to my husband. Clara's blood ran cold. Legally, he is still my husband, and legally I can make your life very difficult. Lydia's smile was razor sharp. I know about the job, the apartment, the medical bills, all paid for by my husband. Do you know what that looks like to a judge, to the press? I earned that job. You seduced a vulnerable man going through a divorce. That's what everyone will believe. And your daughter? Lydia's voice dropped to something cruel. Child Services will be very interested in how a single mother with no stable income suddenly has access to million-dollar medical treatments. You wouldn't, but Clara knew she would. Try me. Walk away from Lorenzo. Find your own job, your own apartment. Stop being a parasite on my marriage. Lydia leaned closer. Or I'll make sure you lose everything, including Maya. Lydia left, her perfume lingering like poison. Clara closed the door and slid down against it, her whole body shaking. Everything she'd built, the job, the apartment, Maya's treatment, all of it could be destroyed by one vindictive woman with money and power. Clara looked at her daughter, sleeping peacefully in the next room, healthy, happy, alive. She thought about Julian's steady presence, his quiet support, his lack of expectations. She thought about Lorenzo's intensity, his opportunities. Then she thought about Lydia's threat and the fragile foundation of her new life. And she realized the truth. She'd been so focused on who to choose that she'd forgotten the most important choice. Who did she want to be? The woman who needed saving, or the woman who saved herself? Clara pulled out her phone and started typing a third message. Not to Lorenzo or Julian, but to herself. I'm not a prize to be won. I'm not a problem to be solved. I'm a mother, a survivor, and whatever comes next, I choose myself first. She hit save and stared at the words. Then she looked at the 2 unsent messages to Lorenzo and Julian. Her finger hovered over the send button. The screen glowed in the darkness, waiting. And somewhere in the city, 2 men waited too, each hoping to be chosen, neither knowing that the real choice Clara faced was whether she needed to choose anyone at all. The question hung in the air, unanswered. When you've spent your whole life surviving alone, and 2 people offer different paths to a better life, do you choose the one who gives you everything you need, or the one who asks for nothing but offers his presence? Or do you choose yourself and risk losing both? Clara's phone screen dimmed, then went dark. She didn't press send. Not yet. To be continued. But wait, Clara's choice is in your hands. Scroll down to the comments and like the comment of the man you think Clara should choose. But your vote only counts if you're subscribed. So hit that subscribe button first, then go vote. The comment with the most likes wins. That's who Clara ends up with in part 2. But if you think Clara should choose herself and walk away from both men, drop a comment with Team Clara and let me know why. Part 2 drops soon, and only subscribers will know how this story ends. Who will it be?